Mega Man Legends 2 is the obvious sequel to Mega Man Legends. It was released in April 2000. When I was trying to find some sales figure, I ran into a bit of a problem. There seems to be only a few that were reported, and only from Japan. It sold over 88,000 copies and another 15,300 copies on the PSP. I'm guessing sales from other regions were not great. The first game did not sell all that well enough to get a sequel, but not well enough to really make an impact on the market. I have no doubt it played a part in the lack of sales for the sequel, but the game itself did not do itself any favors. Let's get into it. When it comes to the story, it takes place a few years after the events on Catalog's Island. So Capcom did the same thing they did in the first one, and the intro to the game plays after you start up the game and does not repeat once you get to the start screen. This time it skips the text scroll and goes with a full cutscene, and it is long. The gist of it is a very wealthy man, Werner von Blücher, built a very large ship named the Sulphur Bottom to go to an island named Forbidden Island. It's not the cleverest name. Only two people have ever come back from the island, Gramps and Werner, in search of the Mother Lode, the legendary treasure from the last game. In an effort to stop the Sulphur Bottom from going to the island, a woman who Gramps recognizes attacks the ship, and her companion, Thing, causes it to crash land on the island. Mega Man and Roll then depart to rescue Gramps and the Sulphur Bottom. When it comes to the story, a lot of what happened in the first game is discarded. Outside of a short entry in Gramps' journal mentioning the monolith over Catalog's Island, the only bits of plot that make it into the sequel are Roll's missing parents, the Mother Lode, and Mega Man's memory not being intact. The events with Juno were rendered irrelevant. The result is a bunch of new story elements that make the whole thing a convoluted mess. Another aspect of the game is the voice acting, with some hits and misses. The most notable being a change in Mega Man's voice actor from Corey Sevier to Susan Roman. I know it's common for female voice actors to play male characters when they are young, but Mega Man is not a child, and years have gone by, so this was an odd choice. And honestly, it was very noticeable every time Mega Man talked. It's not the only time I have to question the choice of Mega Man's voice actor. Just look at Mega Man and Mega Man X on the PlayStation. They are all bad in a similar manner.
That's good. By the way, what do you make of these?
These?
Question. I'm breaking contact now.
Wait, Zero! I'm serious!
I don't blame the voice actors, and I did watch a short documentary about the making of the games, and the lines were recorded years before the game was released. And I suspect Capcom was too cheap to pay for a new voice actor. The other part is the line delivery. It still has bits where there are awkward pauses during dialogue, not just at the end of sentences, but in the middle of them. So while editing this, I looked up a couple of the voice actors. I was looking at the voice actors, and a lot of them are Canadian, which explains a lot, and you'll see in the next clip.
I'm so sorry. Really, I am. I can't tell you how sorry I am. I thought you were pirates. That's why we shot at you. Can you please forgive me? Please.
Seems like Glide and his bunch have heard there's a key to the Mother Lode here. They've been attacking us for a while now.
We're all right. Our ship wasn't badly damaged.
Further, there are some odd choices in terms of dialogue with some of the pirates. This is more on me than the game, mainly due to me forming the opinion that it's a bit goofy. It was the same in the first game, but feels like the writers leaned harder into it. making it hard to take the story seriously at times.
Easily. We'll take you with us. Game's over, Mega Man.
One thing I failed to mention about the cutscene at the beginning of the game is that Roll's mother, Amelia, is the person who tried to stop the Sulphur Bottom. There's more to it than that, but Roll's father also makes an appearance. There was no build-up to the reveal, it just happens. Developers tried to throw a wrench into the works by showing the picture of Roll's parents at different parts in the game, but it's not in color. So when it comes to Roll's father, it's not a dead giveaway, but they let the player know without any fanfare, and the plot point ran into a dead end. My guess is they were hoping for a sequel to wrap parts of the story up, but that never happened, and I will get into that later. Once the game starts, Mega Man and Roll get to the storm surrounding the Forbidden Island, and go to a nearby village to get parts for a ship designed by Roll's father that can get through the storm around the island. Upon going into the junk shop to look for parts, they see a man named Joe, who goes off to some local ruins for parts. Upon asking the shop owner if he had parts based off of the dropship blueprints, he says Joe is making one as well. After Roll goes after Joe, and you rescue him from the ruins, he gives Mega Man and Roll the dropship. Joe's backstory is that he was found outside the village clutching the blueprints from the dropship. The story never explicitly says why he built it or how he lost his memory, and your interactions with Joe are minimal. In terms of Mega Man's interaction with Joe, he gives him the dropship and later gives Mega Man a key to the train he built to defend the village from pirates later on in the game. He's even in the same bed in both cases. The revelation that he is Roll's father happens after Mega Man leaves the room and he pulls a copy of the same picture of Roll with her parents as a toddler. I can only guess, but I think he built the dropship to try and find Roll's mother, or at least her body, considering he formed a new relationship with another woman and lied about his memory, or he got it back. I'm not sure. It's not clear, and that is the last time you get any meaningful interaction with him, because he disappears from the game entirely after that. Back to the Forbidden Island. After landing on the island and defeating a large reaver, the storm clears, with two characters being revealed in more ways than one. I can't show the cutscene, but there is some brief nudity in the game. A bit of an odd choice and not something I remembered when I played long ago. The sequel is a bit perverted at times, with multiple instances of female characters being put in some compromising situations. You don't see anything outside of the cutscene with Sarah, but you do see Mega Man's reactions, like Tron's clothing being burnt off after a battle.
With the key! What? Why is your face red? Why is everyone looking at me that way? Miss Tron, your clothes have been kind of ripped up. Actually, your clothes are gone. What?
And walking in on Roll while she's taking a bath, and Mega Man celebrates this little accident.
What do you think you're doing?
And there are some ladies with some revealing clothes as well, most notably the mayor of one village that you can give her money to take a quiz. She has a little black dress on that defies gravity, and you can answer 100 questions to get a free part, with her swaying back and forth the whole entire time. So if you like plugging an old breast with 2D lines to give them definition, go for it. In terms of those questions, though, there's a lot there that I never learned as a kid, and some of it I don't think I ever would learn. I mean, they ask questions about the Beatles and the Police, both music groups. I don't know why they would put that in a 90s game. What 90s child is going to know or even care about that? Technically 2000s, but whatever. I went on a bit of a tangent there, but Sarah and her companion tell Gramps and Warner about some keys that would allow them to make all the reactor crystals they need. They then ask Mega Man to gather the keys, but find a bug left by the group of pirates, setting up a conflict between them and Mega Man. The bonds return, and there are some new faces Mega Man fights as he gathers the keys. At least the cycle of fighting mechs is broken in the game. Not much happens with each key, but as a bit of a positive point, it takes place in different locations around the planet. The story gets a bit convoluted later in the game. Yuna, the other person who's controlling Roll's mother, transferred her mind, for a lack of a better way of putting it, into Roll's mother so she could bypass limitations programmed into her. Yuna and Sarah are both mother units, which begs the question, who was Juno uploading a backup to in the first game? To make things worse, they add another character, the Master, the last true human who had some sort of relationship with Mega Man, and wants him to destroy the system. But only Yuna and Sarah seem to know what the system is. My best guess is the system is responsible for calling the carbons, or humans, every now and again and replace them with new ones till they get to a point where it repeats itself. Also, the Master dies. No idea why or how, he just dies. In a flashback. No idea why or how, he just does. It ends with a fight with Sarah to stop the system from activating, and then Mega Man is stranded on the moon with Sarah, who transfers her mind to Yuna's old body, while Yuna still has Roll's body, and now they're permanently trapped on the moon. And there's a cutscene later on where somehow Data made it back to the planet, and he's trying to, or she, I'm not sure which, help Roll and Tron build a rocket to go up and get him, and they keep arguing and messing things up. And Data says they can actually point out how to build said rocket, but they just ignore Data. I guess it's supposed to be comical, but that's where Mega Man still is to this day. Now, in terms of gameplay, I would say they have learned from the previous game. Not as much as I would have liked, but there are improvements. Capcom made use of the DualShock controller, and you can control Mega Man with the analog sticks. He can also run and gun now instead of holding still to shoot. The bosses are harder if you're not prepared as well, although you can make it easier if you put the time into upgrading special weapons and your buster. The R2 targeting can cycle through targets and has 4 arrows appearing to indicate you are in range with the buster gun. I did briefly mention the world map earlier, but the game takes place in different spots around the planet, with you choosing where to go via the flutter. The number of ruins you can explore has increased, and the ruins were expanded upon as well. In the last game, it took like 10 minutes to get through the whole thing. The overworld leading to the ruins, on the other hand, feels like they have been decreased in size, but Reaver bots do randomly make their way to the surface. It is still more lucrative to destroy the Reavers in the ruins for Zenny, unfortunately. And that's usually due to the inconsistency of them spawning on the surface, not to mention they're not worth as much Zenny, which has you running around the ruins, destroying all the Reavers, and then exiting and re-entering the ruins to respawn them. Now, on top of that, though, it's actually not exactly the same set of Reavers every time. They do switch it up with different formations every now and then, so you can get lucky and get even more Zenny at times. It just helps with the tediousness of having to farm Zenny, which I'll touch on later. So the ruins themselves have received a bit of a facelift. Like I said, they've increased it so it doesn't just take 10 minutes to get through them. So they're longer and have a little bit more depth in terms of their mechanics. Instead of a black ceiling used to give them a false impression of height, the ruins do have a visible textured ceiling. Each one is unique, particularly the ruins that hold the keys, and each has its own background music. There are 2 ruins that I despise because they involve water and raising and lowering the water level. Ocarina of Time is not the best experience, but this was just tedious because you move at a snail's pace, and I had to question the design choice behind that. One thing they did not learn from is the lack of a free aim. You can rotate where Mega Man looks and shoots, but it's slow and clunky. And there is no targeting reticle to indicate where you're pointing, making it hard to lead targets, particularly air targets. But the R2 targeting fails in that department because you miss till it holds still or comes straight at you. I already covered the voice acting, and like I said, Mega Man's voice actor being changed is a bit of a downgrade for me, especially because of how high-pitched and annoying it is. One thing they kept from previous games was the huge jump in difficulty when it comes to the final boss. Sarah puts on armor and just spams AoE attacks, and it feels like they were just being assholes when it came to the fight. And when I say they, I mean the developers of the game, not Sarah. Although, yeah, she's kind of an asshole too. The most egregious flaw is the Zenny and the amount you need to buy parts, upgrade special weapons, upgrade the canteen, and the med pack. I forgot to mention that they added status effects which can be cured by the med pack. Lastly, there are random items that you can buy for the ship because it caught on fire and they need to be replaced. The worst of all of this is the shining laser. Again, it's the most powerful weapon in the game, but to get the energy to its maximum, it takes 9,999,999 zenny, the maximum amount of zenny you can hold. I guess this is in response to the last game where it was more than doable to max out the shining laser's energy. This time around, they were just being assholes and failed to respect the player's time, but I did it anyway. To get the Zenny for everything, it took a game with a story that you can get through in about 10 hours and increased it to 40 hours. I've never been so bored in my life. I had something on my second screen playing to keep me from going insane from how tedious it was. The worst part is the shining laser is not as powerful as it was in the first game, so it's not even worth the effort. So what happened to the sequel? I would recommend the What Happened series by Matt McMuscles, but I will give a Cliff Notes version. The first two games did not do all that well. Capcom also had a series of failures from Western studios in an attempt to make games for a Western audience, resulting in them becoming more risk-adverse, although the Dead Rising remaster seems to be a bit of an outlier in that case. On top of that, Capcom wanted to try something new. They wanted players to get involved with the development of the game by participating via a website. What Capcom failed to take into account is people's interest will drop off over time, and they were making decisions based on the amount of engagement they received from people participating. There's more nuance to it than that, but in the end, they canceled Mega Man Legends 3, along with a slew of other Mega Man projects, including a sort of gritty reboot for Mega Man X. Overall, the game was fun when I was going through the story, but took a sharp turn for the worse when it came to grinding out the Zenny to get by in the game. The story seems to ignore most of the previous game and become a convoluted mess. There were some improvements to the gameplay, but nothing to really make it stand out all that much from its predecessor. And I get why it did not sell well and Capcom's apprehension to making a third game. So editing me, it also seems to me that this game looked good in concept on paper, but the execution of said game didn't pan out. And I wish I could give credit to whoever I saw this, but it said bigger isn't always better, and that's the case with Mega Man Legends 2. Sure, the ruins are more numerous and bigger and take more time to get through, along with some improvements to the game mechanics. But ultimately, they ended up failing to take other things into account, particularly the Zenny. In the end, they just made a really boring game as a result. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks for watching.